you think Bo Nix did best tonight?
Just his decision making. When it was time for him to take off and run, he did that. He made the right throws, he made the right reads. And I just see him growing every game. He's getting better every game.
Miniature worlds and distant realities. That's what week 1 and week 2 tend to be when you delve into deeper autumn. When the NFL begins to reveal itself, who these teams have truly become. The Saints dropped 91 points on the Panthers in Dallas in games 1 and 2. Women everywhere leaving their men for Clint Kubiak. But injuries mount. The roster is shredded. They've now lost 5 in a row. The Broncos, they start 0-2. Identity free. Now 4-3. Bo Nix growing. Cody Barton, Defensive Player of the Week, barring someone taking out Hezbollah. Sean Payton spoiling Drew Brees' night in New Orleans. Reverse homecoming. I'm Marc Sessler. This is Heed the Call. Dan Hansis has the well-deserved evening off, and we're here with the dangerous one. The host of 89 on Underdog with the great Steve Smith, James Palmer. The real Thursday Night Football is back. James, where would you like to begin with this 33-10 Broncos shredding of the Saints?
Where do we want to begin? Whew, yikes. I think my initial thought out of the gate, Zestdog. Am I able to call you that now? Or no?
Yeah, I think you could call me, well, almost anything you want to call me. Almost.
No, I like that. The door swung ajar now. This game ended at the Drew Brees halftime ceremony, I think. I think the fans even stopped booing in the second half. We heard a lot of boos in the first half, right? When you're lining up to punt, 4th and 1, you're down, they're booing. It's like Drew Brees has the ceremony at halftime, and then they were kind of like, yeah, I think we're good. I think that's why we came. I think we're fine. And they were pouring out of the stands. It was, it's upsetting, honestly, because you mentioned the first 2 games. This was a really fun offense to watch. A lot of creativity from Clint Kubiak, taking shots out of heavy personnel, like Derek Carr unleashing deep balls, and there's no players. I don't know if I've seen a team in recent memory hit like this. You lose both corners again in this game to tack on to everybody that they were limping into this game with. What do we have? A 3rd string rookie center playing guard, trying to stop Jonathan Franklin Myers. This is exactly probably what Sean Payton wanted. I think that's what we're going to say. I think Sean Payton wanted a drubbing, let's be honest, and he got one.
It is very Sean Payton to want to win this game
Yes.
specifically. They talked about how he showed up, more hours than normal before it all, went down, and went to in a nice way, went to a Drew Brees banquet or something. Who knows what's happening at that event. But you're right. It's not fair to, I think the question for a couple weeks was did people figure out the Clint Kubiak offense? But when you really look at what's happening, no, it's because that offense has proven to work in multiple forms all over the league. You've lost Derek Carr, Chris Olave, Taysom Hill, Rashid Shaheed out for the year. You mentioned the center situation, which is nuclear. Pete Werner on defense. It's your guys are gone all over the place. And so it's Dennis Allen to me seemed like a sitting duck before the season. And I mentioned
Did we have that discussion?
We did. And I mean, you were on that beat too. And I think Saints fans have been on that beat for dating back for a while. They've been frustrated with him. But that start made you think well, maybe he's safe if they can do this. It's not that it was a mirage. It's just that you're one of these coaches. And I think Al Michaels mentioned that they're the most injured team in the league. I think that's up for debate. There's a bunch of teams that are just so battered right now, but they're not able to function and do what they want to do on any level.
Yeah, I think that's a major part of it. I don't know who. I'm trying to think who's on their level. With the players you mentioned, your top 2
the Rams
wide receivers,
might have been
3. Yeah, Rams are up there. They lost their top 2 receivers. They got 3 offensive linemen essentially out. Their 2 best offensive linemen out of that group. Their most versatile piece in Taysom Hill. I'll be honest. I had a defensive position coach in this league call me in the 4th quarter and say, "I've been working. What the hell is going on in this game?" And he was like, how many guys on this defense? Because obviously he's looking at the defense. How many starters are on this defense that are out there right now? I was like, not a whole lot. And I told him about Tyrann Mathieu having a ball go off his chest, who's been one of my favorite players. I covered him at LSU. When he was at LSU, I was covering the SEC. I don't think he's had an easier interception in his life. He's got 35 in the NFL, the active leader right now in terms of interceptions. And number 36 was an exact example, or the not number 36 was the exact example, Mark, of like what's going on with New Orleans, right? Like it's exactly that. And I think the conversation I wanted to have, because this game was a dumpster fire, if we're going to talk one thing on each team, and we'll do that, and we're talking Saints, where do they go from here? Like, I think we are now envisioning a multi-year rebuild, like Atlanta Falcons, dead money, multiple years. Tell the next head coach that's coming in, we know what we're putting you in. I'm curious, is that Clint Kubiak? Like, honestly, like a young guy that you think like, oh, let's elevate him and say, Clint, don't worry, the first 2 years are on us. They've pushed more money down the road than you can imagine. Like, they can't fix this in 1 year. I think they're going to be sellers. I would look for teams to look at Chase Young. I think they're already sniffing around. That's a 1-year deal. Pass rushers are definitely things that happen. One of the things that happen at the deadline, even though receivers are one that we really have our eye on. Like the Lions, the Eagles are looking for pass rush help, to my understanding. The Ravens are looking probably for some help. Do they start trying to dump some of this stuff off? But also financially, like, Mark, they're in a position where this is like, they've pushed it down the line for so long. And so many of these players are on the other side of 30, still good players. Mario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu, Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan was great pregame, by the way. Fired up. Did you see the pregame interview with Kelly Hartung?
I never miss a pregame interview in any game, but I did miss this one.
She goes, Sean Payton brought you in 2011, and he just interrupts her and goes, Sean Payton's gone. It's like,
he's good. He's half media at this point, so we know
great. It was like a WWE. It was like the opening interview before WrestleMania. I've only been to one WrestleMania.
Do you think even so, like you could move on from? I mean, you get to a point with some of these teams where, and Gravedigger sent us during the game a pretty trenchant tweet where it was like, well, they don't have like 2 or 3 guys that can save your cap. Mm-hmm. Like the guys with the biggest cap numbers, it's kind of spread out it's dotted all over the place. They're moving it down the road, and it's like, but can you move on from like Alvin Kamara? Can you move on? Marshawn Lattimore's name came up in trades. He got hurt tonight, but his name came up in trades, trade whispers all off season. So it's like, it seems like almost anyone's expendable. Like, who's the future here? It's not Derek Carr.
No, because remember, they were, to my understanding, looking at quarterbacks in the first round heavily. Like, they did a boatload of work on quarterbacks. And if they were looking to do that, no, Derek Carr's not your long-term future. Now, we did think in the first 2 games, like, maybe we have a resurgence from Derek Carr. Right. This would work. So I don't think anybody's safe. No, I don't think the coaching staff's safe. I think like a total like retool in New Orleans is what we're looking at. And it's going to be fascinating to watch what happens. I don't know. I don't want to say. I think Dennis Allen survives maybe the season, because this isn't on him, these injuries. But the effort today, you're going to put on the head coach, whether it's his fault or not, right? I mean, like Javonte Williams, you saw him get in the post-game interview. I thought there was one touchdown he had, like, inside the 5, where it was almost like he didn't understand why nobody was stopping him. Like, he's, like, falling into the end zone. He's like, I thought this would be harder, and he just goes into the end zone. Like, that's on the, whether you like it or not, that's always put on the coach.
Well, yeah, and there's a clip going out there where, Spencer Rattler in a tough situation and struggled, in which it's a tough assignment, but coming off the field mouthing like, what's going on here? What are we trying to do? It's like, I don't think Dennis Allen is someone you'd call a player's coach from what I've heard. All right, that's the Saints side of things. Let's talk some Broncos after we take a quick break, where James and I, during these breaks, here's what we do. We spend 3 or 4 minutes just sort of luxuriating, taking, eating all sorts of foods. Mm-hmm. People wonder what happens during these breaks. The real breaks, we take plenty of time for ourselves. We'll be back soon.
Big time. Hydrate.
This episode of Heed the Call with Dan Hansis and Marc Sessler is brought to you by BetterHelp. Is there something new you'd love to learn, like maybe how to play an instrument, how to drive a stick shift? It could be anything, but if you're struggling to find the motivation to get started, therapy can help. Therapy can empower you to be the best version of yourself. It can help you learn positive coping skills, how to set boundaries, and help find that motivation you've been lacking. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Entirely online, it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. To get started, just fill out a short questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/HTC today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/HTC. We're halfway through October, or as we call it on Underdog, Boostober. Yes, we do. Underdog has been dropping new promos, boosts, and discounts every single day this month, so don't miss out on these specials before Halloween. Just download the Underdog app, sign up with the code HTC, our show, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit for our U.S. audience only. All right, we're back. Let's talk some Denver Broncos. You are a Denver man. I used to live in Boulder in Denver, and we probably went to some of the same haunts, but you know the Broncos really well. And I was pretty suspicious of the Sean Payton experience in Denver around this time a year ago for obvious reasons. Who wasn't? They really surged down the stretch. He didn't have his quarterback. He's growing one week by week now, but it's also just the whole team, and it's the defense. Like Cody Barton tonight, we mentioned him, like, wow. And Vance Joseph, one of the rare, like, head coach of a team and comes back as a coordinator. I don't feel like that just does not. That doesn't happen for so many. It's kind of like, you know, like relationships. It just doesn't happen. But it happened here, and it's working. And the whole team, to me, seems to be kind of jiving well together and gelling and playing together well. And like they're surrounding this young quarterback who's been really good on his feet too. Where are we with this Sean Payton thing? Like I was wondering how much he wanted to do this before the season, but I see something different now.
Yeah, I think he likes this challenge, Mark. I think he likes this, as you said, growing a quarterback. I don't know why in my head I started picturing like a baby Groot in a pot, like just growing into like hopefully a future Groot. But like, this offense is not good. Today was, you know, I think is not what we're going to see the rest of the way out. I don't think this is like a turning the corner for the Broncos offense. I think a lot of other, you know, things played into this game. He is growing a quarterback essentially from scratch. And I think Drew Brees being in, you know, the booth with Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit, OH, was kind of telling in the third quarter, because he knows what Sean wants from a quarterback and demands from a quarterback better than any other human being on the planet. And I think that's not even negotiable. So the interesting things he said were like, once Bo learns to play with his back to the defense and he plays under center more, and he runs the play action game by turning his back and finding open receivers and plays out of what Sean wants to do. He literally was saying the blueprint probably that Sean has said to Bo Nix, saying in year 2, year 3, year 4, we're going to get to all of these things. Didn't you kind of get that feeling as you were listening to Drew Brees going like, these are the exact things Sean Payton wants out of Bo Nix? I don't think some of them he can do yet. His footwork's still not great. There was a couple throws today where I think he threw it like, both my guys are wide open, which is Sean Payton's system. Just throw it between both of them, and it just hits the ground. But I think this offense is still it's one of the worst in the league still. It's a bottom 5 offense. I think it's fascinating that Sean Payton's only had one other season in his career where his quarterbacks had below a 90 rating through the first 6 games. Bo Nix's is like a 70-something. Yeah,
I mean, Nix had some, and we've seen this from a couple rookie quarterbacks. Justin knows one really well, but like just some really absurd, splits between the first and second half. But
for sure,
it helped. You have Paulson Debo go out for the Saints. We mentioned Lattimore. You're playing a banged up defense, and it's steps. For me, it's just steps, halves, quarters. Because at the half of this game, they had 16 first downs. The Saints had 5. They'd owned the ball for almost 20 minutes. They had 242 yards of offense and ended up with a bunch. So it's like, I just sort of feel like if I want to trust one of these coaches to build an experience and to grow a quarterback, I think you're exactly right. Breeze is like, I'm going to tell you about quarterback.
I'm telling you Sean's blueprint.
201, 301 with Sean Payton. He knows, he's read all the textbooks. He knows how the class works, and he aced it. And so you're right. Yeah. He sees it in Bo Nix. Now, a lot of people say these things about young quarterbacks, and so it's like we'll find out in time if this translates. But I do see growth drive to drive. There are these moments where it's like, I can believe in Bo Nix with Sean Payton.
Yeah, But I also think, like in the draft process, and obviously the draft process is a crapshoot because how many first rounders have not hit and how many people have been wrong. But I was told pretty universally the ceiling on Bo Nix is not all that high. We ain't got like, we're not living in an A-frame here, or we got a beautiful vaulted foyer. The ceiling is not super, super high. So like, because he's played so much already and he's developed so much already. I think there's definitely ways he can play better, and I think you can, in the system, and fit always matter. But I do think he's going to get much better. I do think he doesn't make the same mistake twice very often. I think he has a lot of really good offensive minds around him. And I think we're going to continue to watch this. He doesn't have a great group of skill guys around him. Like, they put all their money into the offensive line. I mean, I'm looking at like what Caleb Williams is playing with. Look at the skill groups of every team in that division, honestly, between Minnesota and Green Bay and Detroit and Chicago. Like, I think the Broncos would trade for any of those groups of skill guys. I mean, you got Cortland Sutton, who barely was targeted, is like really your only playmaker. Their joker, quote-unquote joker, who has been Jimmy Graham in the past and stuff in that role for Sean Payton, was supposed to be this guy named Greg Dulcich, who's now been a healthy scratch 3 games in a row now at the tight end spot. So,
well, joke on the Broncos then.
Yeah, that's a joke on the Broncos for sure, Mark.
Yes, but Sutton was invisible tonight.
He was.
He didn't. I don't think he even did have a target.
And so the interesting part is, and I mentioned this before the show, and look at Justin down there. He's like, how long are they going to talk about this dumpster fire of a game?
Justin is so annoyed.
I'm going to go
like
big
Justin's
picture.
done a lot of work
big
today.
picture
He's very
here.
annoyed. Yeah.
We saw a lot of targets to this guy, Devon Vele, who they got in the 7th round out of Utah. Who's a 26-year-old rookie who's actually, I think, a pretty decent player and had a great camp. Troy Franklin, the other rookie receiver who's Bo Nix's teammate at Oregon. Sean Payton thinks this draft class is going to be comparable to the 2017 draft class that he had with the New Orleans Saints. It was one of the best draft classes we've seen in recent memory. And he has told ownership this in Denver, which I guess is like a cool conversation now, but in a few years, is it like a egg on your face type of conversation? Hey, Sean, remember when you told us about that draft class in 2024? Like, I guess we're seeing those guys get run. That's my point. You know, we're seeing those young receivers get some run. Jonah Ellis, the pass rusher there. Like, so we'll see. Sean has a lot of faith in this, and I think it's going to take some time. I didn't think Sean would have a lot of patience because that's not a trait he has.
Yeah, that was my question too. But it is he's got to be one of the most powerful head coaches, and so the draft
has
class,
all to say.
Right, matters very much. I don't know if you guys saw this, not to take another minute of your time here, but like I saw a commercial during this broadcast about Vasometer systems, which are essentially hot flashes, and there was for a major pharmaceutical drug, Veoza. And I support people with hot flashes. I care about them, but it was a bunch of people celebrating and running around like having a wonderful time. And I don't quite get the product. I mean, I don't quite know. I don't get the marketing strategy. But not that anyone needs to comment on that.
I don't think we're the demographic, Mark, for this product.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I am the demographic, but it caught my eye during what was a very...
What was it called? Provasic?
Veoza. Well, Vasometer symptoms.
Provasic's from The Fugitive.
Yeah, no. Well, there's a lot of these drugs flying around.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but they were... I don't know. I guess like I need to go research the whole condition a little bit more. I know that it affects people at a certain time in life, and I certainly care about them deeply. James, we could have a second show maybe tomorrow about this game. We can dial back, 4 or 5 other points and sides to this. There's a lot to break down.
I got all these notes.
But you texted me something because we like to do a little fun thing on the end of the night.
Yeah.
You, like you said, you were up watching Pulp Fiction up in the mountains
last night. Yeah, bro night.
That's as much as we know about it. I don't know. Like, that sounds adventurous. I like that. But like, you sent me something. If you want to we'll put it up on screen here. If you want to set it up.
Oh yeah, I did send this to you last night. Yes. Yeah. Look at this. This is Quentin Tarantino's list for Pulp Fiction on the characters and the actors that he would have liked to play the characters. Obviously, we know, Mark, you are obviously a huge QT guy. Like, a lot of these characters written for people, right?
Yeah.
Now, I love the question you asked me because I was looking over this while I'm watching, and I know you know this. I sent it to you with what? I said, I know you've seen this list. And so I want to know, what's one character that you think maybe, I don't want to say could have done a better job, but you're intrigued to see, like, if they would have landed the role as opposed to who actually had the role?
Yeah, because the list is, and so the list shows to me, like I texted you, just, I think if you're a screenwriter, you would write like characters based off of people you knew in real life that made you feel something, or actors. Like Tarantino just went right to these list of actors. Yeah. And it's fascinating to see. And because I think one of the biggest things that happened to Hollywood in the 90s was him using John Travolta for Vincent Vega. And I think there's no way, it's almost like you can't replace, I think I said you can't replace like Han Solo with Christopher Walken. We knew that almost happened instead of Harrison Ford. You couldn't imagine it.
What did I write you back? What did I write you back?
Well, I'd have to look. What was it?
I said it was almost like, could you picture Willem Dafoe being Batman? Because that was kind of Tim Burton's, he was toying around with that, with Willem Dafoe instead of Michael Keaton.
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's like, it's not that I think it would be better, but for me, when I saw that for Vincent Vega, the John Travolta role, that he had picked Gary Oldman on this group of actors, because so I just want to go back to that time, because if you remember who he was back then, like Gary Oldman had just played like Lee Harvey Oswald in JFK. He had just done incredible work all over the place. I just can't imagine him in that Travolta role because it's so cemented. He was in True Romance, obviously. Like, so there's reasons that Travolta would go there. But to me, I would love to I wish we could just see films with a different version of an actor like that. It would have blown my mind.
Yeah, I honestly think, and I know this is going to be blasphemy, and I love that, I looked it up, like the three big hits John Travolta was rocking on before Pulp Fiction were Look Who's Talking, Look Who's Talking 2, and Look Who's Talking Now. I mean, he was red hot.
That's a trilogy.
Yeah, that's a trilogy right there. And so, like, obviously this changes the course of his career. He gets it. I think this might be crazy, I think Michael Madsen would have done just as good of a job. I can see that's who it was written for. Yep. And we know his relationship with Quentin Tarantino, and he went on to be in a lot of other roles with him moving forward. He turned it down, apparently, my understanding, right? He just didn't want to do it, I believe. And so I think the role would have been essentially the same. I can see Michael Madsen playing that role. I don't want to take anything away from, John Travolta, but I could see Madsen playing it. Now, to me, I don't see the number one pick for Lance. I don't see John Cusack playing that role that Eric Stoltz crushed. And I'm glad Eric got it. I mean, to be in Back to the Future and then say, this stinks so bad, we're going to start over right. and cut you out, and now it's going to become one of the greatest movies of all time. He didn't need that to happen again. I'm glad he got it. But I want to ask you, because we're talking about who was hot, looks and career. John Cusack was on fire at that time.
Sure.
Could you see him playing that role, though?
Well, I guess I'm not disagreeing with you, but yes, I could, because I kind of think he's got this thing about him where it would kind of fit. But to me, I mean, Pulp Fiction, the reason these tweets are going around that it's 30 years old, it's its 30-year anniversary, and I think for, how much older does it need to be where these roles are just cemented into our minds and into our hearts? So
for sure.
I can imagine it, but it would feel really out of sync to not have it be Stoltz, because Stoltz has a little bit of something special about him that, and I'm with you. That would suck to it would suck to have been on the lot for Back to the Future, and then
it's almost like a decade apart too,
Fox
right?
Takes it.
Yeah, it's like 85, 94. It's like every decade I get hosed out of the best movie made in that entire decade.
Yeah, I think one of his, if I'm not mistaken, he was the lead in Mask, and he you didn't even know it was him. You wouldn't even know what human it was. So it was good to have his actual face. He did lots of stuff.
He got to work with Cher. Yeah.
He did. Well, anyways, all right. I guess we're at the end of this. It was an incredible football game, one that I know that when I think about why I joined the legion of people to cover football, it was because of a game like a game tonight, where I could tell that looking out on the streets, the masses were frozen in anticipation for what would happen next.
Yes, let's see. Hey, and that's the site of the Super Bowl, baby. That's where we're headed. Super Bowl Sunday.
We are.
New Orleans.
We'll be there.
I
Underdog
spent a
will
lot
be there.
of time there.
Yes,
Too much
you
time.
did. Yes, you have.
I've been in New Orleans a lot. But like, listen, my last point about this game, because this is what I want to make Justin unhappy about.
Yeah.
There was one point brought up that I think is going to be an interesting one coming after this season when the next head coaching cycle starts. Is Vance Joseph going to be in that rotation? And Al Michaels made, in my opinion, a really, really great parallel. He's like, is Vance Joseph Raheem Morris? Like, you got an opportunity early. You go back to being a DC. You go back to, cutting your teeth again and showing everybody how good of a coach you are, and you get another crack. I know personally that VJ wants another crack as a head coach. I also know the way it happened the first time in Denver. He was like a figurehead. He was like a fake president in a country run by the mob or the cartel. Like, he had no say in Denver when he was the head coach. He made no decisions. I think he'd like the crack at being a head coach again, and I'm kind of curious if he'll be part of the conversation as well as his defense is playing, because they're playing outstanding with really no household talent at all. I'm curious if his name finds his way into the head coaching circle, because my understanding, talking to some people around the league this week, because after the Saleh thing, and I think Dougie might be on the hot seat coming back if they lose. The seat might not be even hot. It might just not even be on the airplane back from London. If they lose that game, how many openings do we have? 6, possibly 7. Is Vance Joseph part of that conversation? I'm interested. I'm intrigued.
I've always wanted to sit in on one of these 9-hour coaching interviews, because I think that he'd have a chance to explain why things weren't able to work, or there's an argument for him to make for himself. And the same thing for Raheem Morris. Our colleague, and I know that that's what he calls us, Bill Belichick, our colleague.
He refers to us to that all the time.
He does. He flamed out as a defensive-minded coach early on with a franchise that had some ups and downs, and found a second job and did quite well. I'm not comparing the two of them, but I like the idea of a veteran coach getting a second chance.
Yeah, I'm all about second chances. This league writes people off so quick, man. We're talking about rookie quarterbacks. They're done immediately after that first, if you don't succeed right away, we're moving on. Same thing with a lot of coaches. The same guys get a lot of the same jobs, and I'm curious if he can get himself back into that conversation after this kind of break, because he's coaching really well. He's got a great voice. We've got great backers, or whatever. Vance talks very, very deep. He has kind of like a voice that would belong in Pulp Fiction, honestly.
Well, or he could be a great radio man. I just got a text from Justin saying, you are not going to get a second chance if you keep talking. Well, Justin, you're not in control here, just to let you know. We're in control of the show.
I got a lot of messages on here.
But we will close it out. It's Thursday night football.
It was
it's
beautiful.
week 7, the beginning of a very important week. We'll just keep spinning. We're going to come back on Sunday night with our flagship Sunday night show. We're certain to have you back on another.
I'm going to be in Minnesota on Sunday, baby. Lions, Vikings.
Is that where you're going?
Lions,
you're going
Vikings.
You could call that the game of the week.
That's why I'm going. I went to the game of the week last week. I wanted to go to the Beltway game. I wanted to see Commanders, Ravens. Now we got Vikings, Lions.
I love that this is happening. We've got a man, down on the turf, bringing us incredible reporting. We'll have you back soon. Thank you to everyone. And there's one last thing you got to do before you press stop on this. You got to heed the call.